So we're going to go over Thomas here, as Thomas still did go 4-1. As we do know, his one and only loss was the Green Tide player. And he had a very off-meta list. So let's take a look at his Bully Boys list. For Thomas, getting 17th at the Germany Super Major. So we have Boss Nikra, 3 war bosses, a war boss in Mega Armor, and then another war boss in Mega Armor. He has 3 10-man units of boys, followed by 2 basic trucks, 1 battle wagon. We all love battle wagons. A Deffdread with 4 saws. So all you guys are talking about the Scorchers. What's up with the saws? A big unit of Flash Gitz, 2 units of Gretchen, 1 random Luda, 5-man unit, 2 Mega Knob units, 5-mans with twin kill saws, a Squig Hog Boy unit. Yep, he still brought that MSU unit. We don't know, maybe he wouldn't want to bring it in the future. And then Storm Boys, followed by a War Biker. This is Thomas's list that did go 4-1. So let's take a look at Thomas's win path before he ran into the Green Tide. Oh, but then I clicked the wrong human being. There we go. So as for his first matchup, we have a face-off against another Bully Boys list. And as you can see here, this Bully Boys list came with a Big Mac and Mega Armor. Very interesting, right? I don't think a lot of people really choose to bring a Big Mac and Mega Armor, but this kid did. We have Boss Nikra, Gazgul Thraka, a War Boss on foot with the biggest boss, another Wards Boss with Head Stompa, a War Boss in Mega Armor with Teleporta, Weird Boy, and then Zagra Ward Snagger. I'd like to see how people feel about Zagra going into the Nexus. I think if you're gonna bring them, you're gonna have to bring them as like a 10-man unit, simply, right? Then we have the 20-man unit of boys. I really do like to see that in my Bully Boys list. 1, 2, 3 trucks, 2 5-man units of Flash Gitz. So this guy's on the same page as there. I'm digging his list from here, you know. 20 Gretchen. Like I said, I'm wondering if in the Nexus this is gonna have to stay, boys, right? We're gonna talk about this. He's a bit light on the Mega Knobs with 3-man unit, a 2-man unit, and then another 3-man unit. So I assume the 3-mans are going with the smaller characters, and then the 2-man unit with Gazgul just to trigger his ability. What I will say is when you have the Big Mac and the custom force field, remember you want maximum amount of bodies on him. That way the enemy can't simply get lucky or throttle and target that unit down, eliminate all his bodyguards, and then you can't regen people anymore, right? So I do like to pay the fat tax of 5 or 6 even if I'm bringing the War Boss and Mega Armor. I also do think Gaz is very much worth throttling the Mega Knobs as well, as in if you're going to bring Gaz, bringing a big unit of Mega Knobs seem to be highly valuable. So I actually encourage that, and especially if you're going to bring Power Claws, as you're giving them +1 to hit and wound, and you're getting those lethals for 2 turns on Bully Boys, feels really good. So that would be the minor tweak I would say here, that I'd be probably either dropping that War Boss or the Big Mac and Mega Armor, consolidates into bigger units of Mega Knobs. That way you can get more value from them. Then he has 1 unit of Knobs, 10-man unit, and 2 Storm Boy units. It was just a slightly less efficient unit of Bully Boys, and I don't think Zagra helps in that matchup. And one thing I want to talk about, as we're going to talk about Pride Nexus and GW coming out with rules on Friday, when I go over how the Orcs perspective on Pariah Nexus and what's upcoming, I'm also going to talk about some questions that I would like to see answered by GW and their kind of like proactive rules teams. And one of them would be for simply just to point this out, even though some of us do know it's a rule, that if you do have an orc on orc face off, in order to determine who calls the WAAAGH first, simply rolling off for it is how the rules are dictated from what I understand. And I think it's the most fair, as let's say someone is, you know, the person going first and they go, well, since it's my choice, since I'm the player with the priority, then I'm going to choose to have you call the WAAAGH first, which some people will play it that way. The second player will now say, well, I'm going to call WAAAGH here. And the first player will say, well, I'm going first. I'll just screen you, not call the WAAAGH. You'll run into me and then I'll call the WAAAGH the following turn. So to avoid weird kind of conundrums like that, I'd simply say roll off for it, as that's what the rules seem to dictate. But this is something that I want GW to clarify. So that's something that I don't know how this went, but it's something that came to mind when I seen that was the matchup. But shout out to new member Castellan. Whoa, let's go, you get. So welcome to the Great WAAAGH. What I will say is we have our 3K raffle for the battle combat patrols. So thank you. I hope you get involved in that. And thank you, Alan. I love you, dude. Keep it up. Hey, I appreciate you, homie. That's what I like to see. And I like that people are using the month, what's it called, membership, where you get it to a certain point. So thanks for that. More of you guys probably have that and haven't used it yet, but it's a free super chat pretty much. So shout out to you, Gitz. And Castellan followed up with the 5 WAAAGH Tactic memberships. Whoa, let's go. And just so you know, yes, orcs do team to call the WAAAGH at the same time, but I'm saying strategically, competitively, top level play, you do have to roll off for it. But thank you very much for Castellan getting those WAAAGH members memberships gifted it. And if you get one of those memberships, be sure to call out Castle and say thank you very much, as you are now in the raffle for the combat patrols, right? The old one and the new one. So thank you very much, buddy. Very generous of you. It means a lot, and it helps us, keep it going. Then we are going to continue with Thomas's second matchup, came into Sean Nothrol, which he went into Death Guard. Now, you guys know how I feel about Death Guard. That's a difficult matchup, but we have to see what the build is built like, right? We have Biologus Putrefier, Foul Blightspawn, Lord of Virulence, and Typhus. So he only has one of those double characters, just like the boys can have double characters. The Plague Marines can have two characters. And in this case, one's giving them 5 first, and the other one's leaving critical 5 pluses. And then they have their Flamers, which are very, very useful into orcs. So be careful about that. Luckily, he only has one of those. Then he has the Death Guard Rhino, followed by 2 units of Death Shroud Terminators. Quite poem profiles, yet Bully Boyz is one of those detachments that might actually be able to deal with that in a somewhat comfortable way. And like we said, this is a one Bully Boyz list. Not super comfortable, but a more comfortable ways, because Bully Boyz are looking to have the strat to reroll hits, and they have a bunch of power claws. So it does allow them to actually put the damage through on these guys. Though it's still not an easy proposition. It just means that he has 2 very heavy elite bricks, which is harder for him to play the mission score with once they get stuck in. Then he has 2 bloat drones and 2 plague burst callers for that Lord of Virulence, right? He's probably going to be babysitting them. And then 3 Nurglings. Goodness. Guys, right now, if I do a poll, no, I was kidding. But will Nurglings still be so popular, right, when they can't score any secondaries? I think smart, high-level players will understand their utility, especially into orcs. But I do see them not being used if they stay the same points, though people are assuming they will. Then followed by 2 Brigands, because as we've seen, he had the Lord of Virulence here. This is one of those lists that he wrote thinking, I'm going to shoot you and hold you off with what I got. Bully Boyz closing the distance, tagging those transports, pulling down the drones, and really of actually still being able to chew through the Plague Marines with a -1 damage, because the reroll hits and just volume of power claws actually feels like what's most likely popular happen. And as we looked at his list, he still has triple war bosses, and that means all those little 10-man units of boys that are running up that normally wouldn't be in any kind of difficulty for any of these Death Guard units might actually get clapped. Not to mention the Deffdread that's coming in with flat 3 damage punches, great strength profile into those those Terminators, as they're going to be wounded them on 2s, I believe, and then -1 because they have a built-in -1 if you're stronger than them. And then the battle wagons at least gives you a great staging point, so you're not getting hit by the Brigands and the Plague Burst crawlers indirect. It would require the Death Guard player to be smart enough to say, hey, I'm going to use my indirect fire to take away your scoring units, like your Storm Boys, your Grots, even if he can, and then dropping something like a Typhus in your backfield. But I really think that he chose to go toe-to-toe with the Orc because he realized he didn't have a lot of frontline combatants to hold them back. He has 1 Rhino, 10 Marines, and then 2 Terminator bricks. Everything else is just the drones, which are going to die once they get there and don't really kill much besides a little bit of flamer shots. Yeah, he's a plague player. So he did have to come forward, and if he did just have targeting, an issue with target prioritization, as in the Death Guard player did, by not killing Storm Boys and Grots, then it meant the Orc player was still able to score, especially with those 10-man units, and still beat them on OC, right? Because if you run into 30 of these Plague Marines, good OC, good durability, into Orcs with stacking -2 to hit, right? With those Nurgling units, you have -1 to weapon skill, ballistic skill, and then you have the -1 to hit from being within 6 inches of a Nurgling bomb. That means if you have 3 of these and you place them on every objective near the mid-table, you can hypothetically give the Orcs, straight up -1 to hit across the board. But Bully Boyz being able to re-roll the hit roll on the wall would make a big difference there, right? So Bully Boyz actually do have the tools for that, and Death Guard needs more frontline combatants to stop the Bully Boyz from coming in so hard to them like that, right? At least in my opinion, not that I'm playing Death Guard right now, but shout out to Castellan for 10 wall tactic memberships again. Whoa, very generous of you. Dang, popping up, just showing what's up. I appreciate that. Very generous, very powerful wall energy I'm getting from you right now, even though you're just showing up. And he said, gather up all the boys. It sounds like you're gathering up all the boys for the Great Wall, which is what we're going to need going into the Prime Nexus. And I see you too. Yeah, Blake, we went over 1 Green Tide list. Green Tide's a 59% win rate right now, so they're fantastic. I enjoyed using them, but they're backbreaking. They do feel very powerful, and I felt like I could counter most of our hard matchups with Green Tide. But how will that change in the Prime Nexus? Huh, Castellan? You answer that too. How will the Green Tide be affected by this new Prime Nexus? And thank you very much. I appreciate it, buddy. Anybody everybody that gets a tactic membership from him, give him a shout out, and let's see some war bosses in chat for Castle War Boss. Castle. Whoa! Thank you, buddy, for our emotes, right? Now, going into his third matchup, we have the Leagues of Voltan. Major Dwarfs, we have Ein here champion, Grimnir, Call. So those are the 4 characters that he had. Enhancement of long list. We have the Hearthkin Warriors, followed by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these Sagittars, 1 unit of Berserkers, 1 unit of the Hearthguard Terminators. They have the Concussion Gauntlets and the Voltanite Disintegrators. Then we have a 5-man unit of the Einhir Terminators, followed by 1 big unit of Pioneers, 2 big unit of Pioneers, and then a 3-man unit of Pioneers. Whenever I see Leagues of Voltan players bring these big 6-man units, I think they're really in love with the profile, but then it leads to them misusing this profile, as they're more of a threat coming off the side of the tables and constantly harassing an orc rather than, or maybe slightly, move blocking them or something, than really giving them a big target that they want to get into. And these guys are going to try to get their guns into line of sight, which means they're more likely to get tagged and bagged, right? So I always wonder about these big units, is whenever I see the 3-man, that feels really good for 90 points. Then you start making them 6-man, I'm like, taking them space. You kind of got to move closer to me to actually get line of sight for all those things. You're not using it for its scoring potential, you're using it for its killing potential, which can whiff from the low AP. And then you have the Sagittars, which I think Sagittars are fantastic for what they are with the transports. And having 2 units of Terminators, I do think it's more values into orcs. But having simply 1 means you are kind of at the whim of the orcs to hope target. You're gonna just annihilate one thing with double sustain 2 and hoping they're killing something, and then you're hoping that you survive the clapback from the orcs in response, which for the most part your unit might be able to. It's not like these Terminators are weak by any means. It's just they're most likely gonna take a ton of damage. If something like a Deffdread does find a way to get into them. The Sagittars, once they are touched, they're far less potent. We don't care to kill them hypothetically in other lists, but again in the Bully Boys you can actually kill them. 10-man units of boys running around this table just tagging Sagittars is actually a great counter. Being able to run up to these Hearthguard Warriors, these individual characters, if they run around individually, because people will put the individual characters in the Sagittars. And then the Berserkers themselves, they are a nice tech piece, but you need more of them. And their ability to make you -1 to charge, -2 to charge, I think, in advance, only procs on the 4+ if they actually hit you with their mortar, I believe. So very contentious. Having transports does make a big difference here for staging potential. And it really does come down to the Leagues of Voltan player picking the right unit to put the oath target on, and then when they don't put it on the unit that you're going to be most aggro with, because you're just like, oh, you put it on that big unit of Mega Knives, I'll stage them for another turn, but I'm gonna come at you with this first wall with the boys and the war boss, right? Because now it's very much less reliable output being put into them when they have to actually hit on 4s and actually go into your wound profile. Not to mention when you countercharge them, there's a chance that you're fighting on death and clearing them. So Leagues of Voltan is one of those matchups that just got thrown on its head into us. They used to be great into us, and then after the changes to our new book, they really just started having a hard time into us. This is the orc list that we went over of the Green Tide. Oh, and then we have our boy Badaxe capping whoa for the 5 wall tactics gifted memberships. Yeah, giving out them teeth, collecting them boys for the great whoa, right? So you guys, we're looking really good right now as orcs as a faction. What I really like about where we're at too for you Gitz is that we are under the line of scrutiny to where people want to come at Mega Knobs, but they don't see our entire codex as a problem and they don't feel super bad about it. So that's actually a good thing for us. And the new codex is coming out, meaning that we are going to be even less scrutinized, and GW might let the pot simmer. You know what I'm saying? They might decide, hey, let's see what happens when Sisters get stuck in. Let's see what happens when Eugene Steelers get in. Let's let these Chaos Space Marines cook for a little longer, right? So I don't think we're going to take as many harsh changes or nerfs as people might be scared of. Just Mega now is probably going up in points. But thank you for Badaxe and capping. Whoa! For the Mudamuff, right? I appreciate you, Get very generous of you. And you made me think about that point right now, without even saying anything about it too. But this is the Green Tide list. We talked about it earlier, but I'll give it a quick rundown so you guys remember. This is a hard counter for Bully Boys. 3 Pain Boys, 3 War Bosses, 1 for Ferocious Show Off, 1 War Boss in Mega Armor. What I always say that people people seem to kind of forget about a green tide list is that mega knobs are super, super important to the green tide list. They simply are. You can try to contend with me that they, could be questioned and maybe you can use knobs instead. I'm telling you no. Every single competitive high level green tide list has had a brick mega knobs in it, and it's usually a fat 6-man unit. Okay, I tried it. I tried to get tacky and do some other things. Just straight up the easiest, most direct value you're getting for your green tide, which already allowed backbreaking effort, is the War Boss and Mega Armor with your mega knobs or just simply gas, right? Even a Big Mac and Mega Armor works really. And then you have the Weird Boy with Bloodthirsty Belligerence. This is a game-changing ability when you have him on the list, just so you know. Going for your enemy's home field becomes very, very likely. Being able to take it off them with the unit of boys feels really, really good. So never don't go home without this. And as Nexus comes out, this is going to become more important, as this is the only way I can see is getting a reliable secret mission done. Then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 unit of boys. Very backbreaking, right? When I played, I just took 100 flat, and I felt really good with that. But then he also brought 20 Gretchen, the 6-man unit of mega knobs, but 6 with combi weapons, maybe not to get bogged down by other infantry, and then 2 units of Storm Boys. Like I said about this list, very powerful, but this list is going to have to change with Nexus, as the boys aren't going to be able to score secondaries anymore. That was his one loss for Thomas, with an 8-point loss, so he did make it a very close game. So shout out to you, Thomas, because your innovative list made it so you even had a chance into Green Tide. Usually when I see other Bully Boys lists go into Green Tide, they simply just get run over. Here's this last matchup with Sons of Sanguinius, the Blood Angel, right? So Blood Angels are doing great. Sons of Sanguinius gives, I believe, +2 strength, and then they get lance potential from strats. Very good, very problematic for orcs, as it takes them to very important key profile changes, such as 6 strength, 6 chain swords, strength 10 power fist stuff, and then you get lance on top of that. So they are fighty, but they're still subject to the weakness of we can fight on death. So we have 1 captain with a jump pack, 2 chaplains with jump packs, the Martes and the Sanguinal, followed by 5 intercessors with jump pack, 5 intercessors with jump pack, 1, 2, 3 units of Death Company Marines, very annoying with their feel no pains, and then a Sanguinarian Guard unit. Sorry, he has all the profiles here of them. It's in the way. 3 units of scouts. So in reality, he has 3 scoring units with the scouts, followed by 4 super killy death missiles, and then 2 units of intercessors that can be used for screens or other scoring units. So in reality, 1 counter charge, 2 fights on death, and he's lost almost all of his killing potential with this list into orc. Of course, he can take a chunk out of us too, but the fact, as we looked at his list, he has trucks, he has battle wagon, he has Flash Gitz that do great into something like Death Company Marines or jetpack intercessors, right? So he has tools and Squig Hog Boys, which are going to rely on a counter charge to clear with this kind of list. So what is he going to use? Scouts? No. He has to come into that unit with a unit of Death Company jetpack Marines. There's a chance to for some reason the Squig survive, most likely not, but there's a chance that they require you to put all of their bodies into them with a good charge. Therefore, they're getting counter charged. Then you have the Deffdread. What is the Deffdread doing? He simply has nothing to skirmish or shoot him away with any kind of shooting profile, which is how the Gladius list look. So as much as this is very killy, and I'm sure he just straight up ran people over, this list is super susceptible to fight on death, super susceptible to something like Flash Gitz, and just straight up Mega Knobs getting lucky and tanking some of these attacks from this crazy army. So that's not very gonna catch me off guard type of list. We very much know what they're doing. So shout out for him defeating the Blood Angels, which were the bullies of the weekend for Thomas. So shout out to Thomas Brutscher for the 4-1 at the Super Major of Germany. Whoa! Taking out the Blood Angels, which is what really made me appreciate this list, and the different kind of offensive utility of boys, war bosses, squigs, Flash Gitz, Deffdreads. So you won my heart over for this week, Thomas, even though you lost to the Green Tide, but that's nothing to be ashamed of, as that's just a straight up counter to you. If you enjoyed the clip, check out the full video here. If you'd like to see more tactics, click here.
Let's get stuck in, lads!